What this video is going to show you is how to use a function in Excel called the offset function. It's a very powerful function that allows you to create dynamically varying arrays or matrices. And I'm going to start off with something very simple and show you how it can be used and the value of it. So let's say you have a list of items for sale, and in this I went with a little baseball theme, and you want to set up a VLOOKUP table to calculate what the price is based on a user request. So you can write some very simple formulas, and I'll put in here as well a user choice. So they want baseballs. And so you can easily write a VLOOKUP table. And if you don't know how to write VLOOKUP tables, then go figure out that before you start to learn about offsets. This is more of an advanced Excel function. So you can write a quick VLOOKUP table where you're going to look up baseballs and you want to figure out the price. So you highlight the matrix, lock it in, and then you want to come over 2 columns and you want an exact match, so it's false, so baseballs are going to be $5. Okay, so that's how you do it with the VLOOKUP table. And index match, I like doing index match. Index, you want to index column C by matching the user choice, which is baseballs, with column B, and you want an exact match, and boom, you get $5 as well. So you can change it to cleats and you get the new value. So that's how you would do VLOOKUP and index match to determine what the price is. Okay, so where does offset function come in? Well, I don't like formulas like this, right? It's just, I've written formulas before that could be 3-4 rows long, and they become impossible to debug when they look like this. I like to name things. So let's name this one right here where the cleats is, what the user chooses. We'll call it user choice. And the way you name a cell or an array or a matrix is by going up here and typing in the name, making sure you've highlighted the fields that you want. So now I have a field called user choice. So I click off it, I can click user choice, and boom, it brings me right back there. So in this case, in these formulas, instead of saying F2, I can say user choice and get the same answer. And the same thing here. Instead of saying F2, user choice. All right, so now I'm going to do the same thing with these. All right, so I'll say price, and let's name that just price. And so now we have user choice, and we have price, and then we'll name this one items. So now we have 3 named fields. We have items, price, and user choice. Price is an array, items is an array, user choice is a field. And I'm going to create one more. We're going to create a matrix. Highlight both, and this could be price list. Okay, so now we have 4 named items. All right, so we can come back in here into the formulas now, and instead of saying B2 to C7, I could say price list. And for the index match, instead of saying C, that field or that column we named price, and B we named items. So now if we come in here and we look at the formula again, now instead of having dollar signs and column and row numbers and letters, it becomes a little bit easier to debug. So you're saying here you're going to match the user choice with the items list. So you're going to go take that user choice, find the items list, come down until you find the user choice, which is cleats, and then you're going to return a number of actually in this case 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you're going to go over to the price list and come down 6 and return 75. VLOOKUP table does the exact same thing. And the only reason I'm showing both of these types of methods is just because there are multiple ways to do things, and I like to show that in Excel. All right, so now we're going to move on to the offset function and how to use it. Okay, so let's say we wanted to now, we started selling different things, and now we're going to start selling footballs. And we're going to start selling helmets. Okay, and the footballs are going to be $15, and the helmets are going to be $65. All right, so now the user comes in and they type footballs. And what do you think is going to happen? Error. Yep, we're going to get an error. And the reason we're going to get an error is you've added to the list, but when you come down here and you do your price list, it's going to stop at cleats. It doesn't know that you just added something, and it doesn't care because you hard-coded it in, right? So here we can use the offset function to make it so that when you add something to your list, it automatically updates price list items price in real time. And the way you do that is name manager, hot formulas, yeah. So you go into Name Manager. Now when you go into Name Manager, you're going to see all 4 of the items that you created. We're not going to need to change user choice, but we're going to want to change these other 3. All right, so how do we do that? Well, you can click on Items and then click Edit. And now we came down to row 9, so all you really have to do is just change this to a 9. And that'll work. Okay, you can change, but you have to change price as well. Make that a 9 as well. And you have to change price list as well so that the VLOOKUP table works. And you do that and click close. Oh. And now, boom, it works. But do you really want to do that every single time you add something? Now you want to add basketballs. And $12. Oh, errors again. So you don't really want to have to come in here each and every time to add something. So what you want to do instead is you want to write an offset function down here in the edit. You want to write your offset function in here so that it becomes a dynamically changing, in this case, array. Okay, so let's do that. So I'm going to do it outside of here, though. Because I like doing it this way. All right, so your offset function, okay, always is going to start with a reference. So the reference is going to be basic. You could be anything you want, to be honest with you. But the easiest way to do it would make it be the heading of the most furthest left part of your matrix at the very top that you're going to start. So in this case, it'd be items. Now, when we do the array, the matrix, the price list matrix, you're still going to want to start there because it's the furthest left and highest up into the heading. All right, so that's going to be your reference. It's the starting point for the offset. So when you're creating your variable array or matrix, this is where it starts. And of course, you want to use the F4 function to lock that cell. You always have to lock that cell. All right, and then you're going to come down 1. All right, so the first number is how many rows, so you're going to start at this reference point, and then how many rows do you want to come down to start your new array? Okay, so we're going to come down 1. And the column, since this is an array, you're not going to go over any columns. You're going to stay right where you are, so the columns are going to be 0. And then the height. How far down do you want to come in this array? And in this case, it's 7. And the width is going to be a 1. So you're going to return basically what these last two are asking you is what are the dimensions of the array that you want returned. I want a 7 by 1 array. And if I hit OK right here, it's going to set up that dimensions. But it's also going to give me an error. But I'll get to that. I don't want a 7 in there because I want this to be dynamically changing, okay? So what function can I use that will tell me how many fields to come down? Well, the function that I find most useful would be count A. Well, what count A does, I'm going to leave the 7 in there. I'm going to hit OK. It's going to be an error, and I'll explain that why here in a minute. Oh, a new function of Excel. That's new. So basically, that's the array that it's returning. Okay. Interesting. Oh, yeah, it was 8, not 7. Sorry. So it returns your 8 by 1 array. Okay. But if you add something new, it's not going to change that. So let's do the count A function over here. Count A is just going to look at a row or a column, and it is going to tell you how many fields are not empty. So if I hit B, just hit the entire column B, it's going to return a 9, but that's also because it's counting the term items. So it would be count A minus 1. All right, so what I do is would copy this function, okay, go into here and change that 8 to the function that I just wrote with count A, and let's lock in those cells. It's a pet peeve of mine. All right. Oh, I'm going to leave that function there, 8. So now if I add something, hockey pucks, and they're, $8. Count A changed to 9, and hockey puck changed. I mean, this array changed. Isn't that cool? Tennis balls, $9. Boom. I'm changing, just adding to the bottom, and my array is changing. So what I do here now is I take this offset function, because by the way, your items array didn't change. It's still only going down to helmets, even though I've added things. So if I take this offset function, don't copy the equal sign, hit C, Control C, copy that formula, go back into Name Manager, click on Items, edit it, come down here and rewrite that formula to the offset formula, and hit Close. Now when I choose Items, it'll choose them all. Oops, sorry, I have to do it this way. When I go to Items and I hit this button right here, it'll show me the entire array. So now when I change and add something else, a soccer ball, and go back to Name Manager, hit the up, it's including it. So you're adding to the bottom of the list, and automatically, dynamically, in real time, your named array updates as well. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing with price and price list. All right, so for price and price list, instead of B, it's going to be C. I'm going to leave it as B because I want to show you that. So if I leave it as B, I come down 1 to start my array, but instead of a 0, I come over 1. Right? So now it's going to be starting in cell C3 right here. And then it's going to be the same thing. I can change this count A with the column B to column C, but I don't really have to, because one would assume that if I add a new price item, I'm going to also add a price. So just all I have to do to that array is just change that one number, how far to go over in the columns to start. And when I do, now I have my price list. I can then copy this function, go back to Name Manager, go to Price, Edit, and copy it in, and then boom, hit OK, and now test it, and there you go. There's my price list. Okay, and now my prices, now if I do price list, which was a matrix, not an array, and click it, again, it's still only coming down to helmets. So let's change that. I'm going to have to move count A up here. Because now I don't want to return an array, I want to return a matrix. So how do I do that? Well, I come back here and I change this back to 0 because I want my returning matrix to start at baseball gloves and come all the way down to $15. All right, so it's coming down 1, but staying where it's put, where the reference is, the column reference starts, 0. I'm still going to count column B to see how many fields are in there. And that's how many down I come on the rows. But instead of a 1 for how wide I want my matrix to be, I need this to be a 2. And when I click 2, there's my new array. Wow, this is cool. This is a new function in Excel. When I've done this in the past, it always returned an error. But now it's actually returning a matrix in these fields. That is a new function in Excel. That's really cool. But again, I don't need this here. This is just to show how to write the functions. So what I'm going to do now is take this, I can copy the equal sign actually, take this entire function, go back in the name manager, go to price list, edit, copy that offset function into here, click OK, and test it. Remember when I tested it a few minutes ago, it only came down to helmets. So let's see. And it comes all the way down now. And hit close. And now you'll see, I've added, since we've started doing this, I've added hockey pucks, tennis balls, and soccer balls. Before that wouldn't have worked unless I redefine that name. But now if I type in tennis balls, boom, you get $9. And I don't need these fields. I'm going to delete them. And let's add, I can't even think of another item there. How about ice skates? And we'll make them $75. And then the user choice becomes ice skates, $75. And I didn't have to rewrite the function in the name manager. It automatically happens. Isn't that cool? I love using the offset function in this way. Now you will find that since we're using an offset function, they don't show up in here anymore. They'll only show up in the name manager. All right. Now there's one more use of the offset function. You can use the offset function in the same way you use a VLOOKUP table. The offset function returns an array of your choosing. It could be an array of 25 rows and 1 column width. It could be a matrix of 50 rows and 45 columns. It could be an array or a matrix of 1 by 1. And there's another word for that. It's a cell. Okay? So you can write an offset function to get the same thing you're doing with the VLOOKUP table or the index match. You can return a cell of 1 by 1 in the same way. Let me show you how to write that function. So I wasn't planning on doing this, so I'm going to actually wing this one, but I'm pretty confident that we can do this. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to offset. All right, and I'll go up to here. And your reference is also going to be items. Again, lock it in. You're going to come down. How far? How far do you want to come down? We don't know. In this case, it's ice skates. You're going to want to come down all the way to ice skates. So, match user choice, comma, items, comma 0. And it's telling you to come down 12. So let's make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. Boom. Okay. Then you're going to want to come over columns. 1, because you want to return the price. And then your height is 1 and your width is 1. And your answer is going to be 75. Make it $1. Isn't that cool? So you can use a VLOOKUP table to return the price of the user's choice item. You can use the index match to get the same thing. You can use an offset function in the same way. So when should you use these functions? When would it be best to use a VLOOKUP? When would it be best to use an index match? And when would it be best to use an offset function to return the cells? I would always use the offset function to name arrays or matrices that can change. But I would use the VLOOKUP table if I was looking up data in a matrix that was easily defined, in which the user choice can be found in the very leftmost column. Okay? And that matrix that you're using for the VLOOKUP doesn't have 1,000,000 columns. Okay? Maybe it's only got 10 columns. So you VLOOKUP, user choice is all the way to the left, and then you're going to come over 5 columns to find your answer. VLOOKUP works best in that case. Index match is going to be best used when the user choice that you're looking up is in a column that is to the right of the data point in which you're trying to return. In this case, let's just say the price was in column B and the items was in column C. Then you would want to use index match, because VLOOKUP doesn't go right to left, it goes left to right. So index match is very efficient if you're looking up a value that is to the left of the user choice. And then the offset function is going to be best to return a single cell if you have a very large matrix in which you're finding data that is all the way to the left, but you might have 250 columns that you're trying to return. And if you use a VLOOKUP table that has a matrix that is defined with that many columns, it becomes extremely inefficient. Okay, but if you use the offset function in that way, then you're just becoming a more efficient Excel user by using the offset function. And to be honest with you, the index match would also be just as efficient as offset in that scenario that I just gave you. But that's why you don't want to use VLOOKUP. If you've got hundreds of columns and thousands of rows, it just takes up so much memory for the computer that it could take a long time to process that information. But if you use offset or index match in that situation, you're actually being much more efficient. So thank you very much.